The council chamber stretched wide enough to hold 47 different species, each sitting in seats designed for their unique bodies. Some sat in pools of water, others floated in gas-filled bubbles. A few hung from the ceiling in crystalline formations. At the far back, in the smallest section, 5 humans sat quietly in simple chairs. Ambassador Hyun adjusted his collar and watched the meeting proceed. He had done this for 20 years now, sitting in these same chairs, listening to the same voices talk over him. The Vextar were speaking now, their crystalline bodies chiming like bells as they moved. They were discussing trade routes, dismissing the human proposal without even looking at it. Next to Hyun, Dr. Nari made a note on her tablet. She had just finished a breakthrough on crimson fever, a disease that killed thousands every year across council space. She would present it today. She already knew what would happen. They would take her research, pat her on the head like a child, and claim credit for themselves. It happened every time. Captain Doyen sat perfectly still in his military uniform. He commanded the human fleet that protected 3 entire sectors of council space. His ships responded to every emergency, every pirate attack, every distress call. The council members knew his name only when they needed rescue. The rest of the time, he was invisible. Counselor Yuna reviewed the economic reports on her screen. Human trading routes connected species that had never spoken to each other before. Human merchants had increased galactic commerce by hundreds of percentage points. Human banks had saved 12 failing economies in the last decade alone. None of this appeared in the official council reports. The credit always went to the elder species. Engineer Taman closed his eyes and listened to the hum of the station around him. He knew every wire, every circuit, every backup system in this massive structure. He had designed most of them. When the defense grid failed, they called him. When the life support glitched, they called him. When the quantum computers crashed, they called him. But when the council discussed infrastructure, they never asked his opinion. The 5 humans had learned to stay quiet. They had learned that speaking up only brought mockery. They had learned that their ideas, no matter how good, would be dismissed as naive. They had learned that to the council, humanity was useful but not equal. 300 years ago, Earth had received the first contact. A Vextar scout ship had landed in Seoul, and the world had changed forever. Humanity had rushed to join the galactic community, eager and excited. They had so much to offer. They had brought medicine, technology, art, and philosophy. They had worked harder than any other species, trying to prove themselves worthy. The council had accepted them, but not as equals. To the ancient species who had built the council 12,000 years ago, humans were infants. Cute, perhaps, useful, certainly, but not to be taken seriously. Hyun remembered his first council meeting. He had proposed a simple idea: protection for primitive species who could not defend themselves. The room had erupted in laughter. The Clixar representative, an insectoid creature with 4 arms, had actually laughed so hard it fell from its chair. "The human thinks we should babysit savages," it had buzzed to its neighbors. Nari remembered presenting her first research paper. She had found a way to triple crop yields on desert planets. The Prithani, floating in their gas bubbles, had taken her work and published it under their own names. When she protested, they had told her that all research belonged to the council. Sharing was what civilized species did. She should be grateful they let her participate. Doyen remembered the slaving incident. He had discovered that 3 council members were running illegal operations, capturing pre-spaceflight species and selling them as workers. He had brought evidence, recordings, testimony. The council had buried it. "These are internal matters," they said. "Young species do not understand the complexities of galactic politics." Yuna remembered when she had exposed corruption in the council banking system. Millions of credits were disappearing into private accounts. She had traced it all, proved it all, presented it all. The council had thanked her for her concern and done nothing. The species involved were too important, too old, too powerful to punish. Taman remembered warning them about the Helix sector expansion. The calculations were clear. Building colonies near the neutron star cluster would cause instability. Radiation would leak. People would die. They had called him paranoid. "Humans always expect disaster," they said. This is why you will never truly understand space. Today would be different, though. Today, something would break. The meeting moved to new business. The council president, a Malurian who looked like a giant squid in a water tank, announced a vote. We propose a reorganization of membership tiers, it gurgled through its translator, to better reflect the maturity and contributions of each species. Hyun felt his stomach tighten. He knew what was coming. The proposal appeared on every screen. Humanity was being moved to probationary status. Their voting rights would become advisory only. They could speak, but their votes would not count. The reason given was simple: insufficient cultural maturity and inadequate time in council. We have been members for 300 years, Hyun said quietly. The Vextar counselor chimed in response. 300 cycles is nothing, a blink, an infant's first breath. You must understand your place. Our place? Yuna spoke up, her voice sharp. We keep 12 of your economies running. Without human trade, half of you would collapse. Mind your tone, the Clixar representative buzzed. This is exactly the kind of emotional outburst that proves you are not ready for full membership. Nari stood slowly. I have cured 7 of your deadliest diseases. I have saved millions of lives. And you sell my cures for profit while giving me nothing. All knowledge belongs to the council, the Prithani wheezed. Your pride is showing, human. Taman did not stand. He simply spoke from his seat. I maintain every critical system on this station. The defense grid, the life support, the computers, everything. And you ignore every warning I give you. Children often think they know better than their elders, the Malurian president gurgled. Doyen finally stood, his military bearing perfect. My ships protect you. My people die for you. And you call us children. The chamber fell silent. The 5 humans looked at each other. No words were needed. They had all reached the same conclusion at the same moment. Hyun pressed the button on his tablet. Humanity votes against this proposal. Your vote is noted, the president said dismissively. All in favor? 42 species voted yes. Only humanity voted no. The measure passed. This session is adjourned, the president announced. The 5 humans gathered their things in silence. They walked out of the chamber together, their footsteps echoing in the vast hall. Behind them, the other species were already chatting and laughing, discussing dinner plans and trade deals. In the human delegation's private office, they sat in a circle. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Hyun broke the silence. I think we all know what needs to happen. Yes, Nari said. Agreed, Yuna added. It is time, Taman confirmed. Doyen nodded once, firmly. Hyun opened his secure comm link to Earth. He typed a single message. Protocol Exodus, 30 cycles. The response came back immediately from Earth's government. Confirmed. Beginning preparations. May we all find peace. Hyun closed the link and looked at his colleagues. We have 30 days to do this right. We leave nothing broken. We leave no debts unpaid. We simply leave. And we never come back, Nari said softly. Never, they all agreed. The council had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. In the chamber above, the council continued its session, unaware that everything was about to change. The first week passed like any other. Dr. Nari went to her laboratory each morning at exactly 700 hours. She ran her experiments, checked her data, and supervised her research team. The Vextar scientists who worked under her noticed nothing different. She smiled the same way. She answered questions patiently. She even started 3 new projects. What they did not notice was that she copied every formula, every breakthrough, every piece of research that belonged solely to her onto encrypted drives. She had spent 20 years developing treatments and cures. The council had taken credit for all of it, but the actual knowledge had always been hers. Now she was taking it back. She also began training her replacement, a young Clixar scientist named Vekin. You should know how to run the mass spectrometer, she told him, just in case I am ever unavailable. Vekin chittered with pleasure. You are finally recognizing my potential. I knew I would lead this lab someday. Nari smiled and said nothing. She showed him everything he would need to know. She wrote detailed manuals. She made video tutorials. When she left, he would have every tool to continue the work. Whether he could actually do it was not her problem. Engineer Taman walked the corridors of the council station with his tablet, checking systems as he always did. The maintenance crew followed him, learning the routes he took every day. He had been their supervisor for 15 years, and they trusted him completely. Watch carefully, he told them. The power coupling in Section 7 needs to be checked every 3 days. If you wait longer, it will overheat. A young Malurian engineer named Kelris bubbled in its tank. You have told us this many times, Taman. Are you going somewhere? Just being thorough, Taman replied. Good engineers always prepare for every possibility. He created maintenance schedules for the next 5 years. He documented every system, every backup, every emergency protocol. He made sure that when he left, the station would not immediately fall apart. What happened after a few months when the deeper problem started was not his responsibility. At night, he sent encrypted messages to every human engineer in council space. Begin withdrawal procedures. Document everything. Leave nothing damaged. We depart in 23 days. Captain Doyen stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Teguki, and watched his fleet move through their patrol routes. 50 human warships guarded 3 sectors of space. They responded to pirate attacks, rescued damaged vessels, and kept the peace. His second officer, Commander Minho, approached him quietly. Sir, I have received confirmations from all ship captains. They are ready. Good, Doyen said. Maintain normal operations. No one must suspect. Over the next 2 weeks, the human fleet quietly repositioned. They told Council Command that they were running training exercises. They moved closer to human space, one jump at a time. They updated their weapon systems. They checked their engines. They prepared for the possibility that the Council might try to stop them from leaving. Doyen also began training the non-human officers who served under him. You should know how to run tactical simulations, he told them. Command positions require this knowledge. A Prithani officer named Sivan floated beside him. You are being unusually generous with training time, Captain. A good commander prepares his people for anything, Doyen replied. What he did not say was that these people would soon need to run their own operations. The human fleet would be gone, and they would be alone. Counselor Yuna spent her days in endless economic meetings. She reviewed trade agreements, approved shipping routes, and balanced budgets. The Council depended on human economic networks more than they realized. Human merchants connected 40 different species. Human banks stabilized currencies. Human trade stations processed 70% of all galactic commerce. She began quietly untangling these networks. Human merchants received coded messages. Complete all current contracts, accept no new long-term agreements. Prepare for relocation. The merchants understood. They had felt the same disrespect Yuna had felt. They began wrapping up their business deals. They paid every debt. They fulfilled every obligation, but they made no promises for the future. Yuna also transferred all human-held assets out of council banks. Slowly, carefully, over 2 weeks, trillions of credits moved back to human space. She did it in small amounts, hiding it among normal transactions. By the time anyone noticed, it would be too late. A Vextar economist named Sharek approached her in the council banking office. The human trade volumes are declining. Is there a problem? Just normal market fluctuations, Yuna said smoothly. Nothing to worry about. Sharek chimed suspiciously. You would tell us if something was wrong, yes? Of course, Yuna lied. Ambassador Hyun continued his diplomatic duties. He attended receptions, gave speeches, and met with other council members. He smiled and shook hands and spoke of cooperation. Inside, he counted down the days. He also sent messages to every human colony, every human station, every human settlement in council space. The message was always the same. Protocol Exodus, 30 cycles. Leave nothing behind, owe nothing. Take everything that is yours. Across the galaxy, 12,000 humans began preparing. Families packed their belongings. Business owners closed their shops. Teachers said goodbye to their students without explaining why. Scientists backed up their research. Doctors trained replacements. They all moved carefully. They all acted normal. They all kept the secret. In the third week, a few council members began to notice something odd. Human merchant ships were leaving ports and not returning. Human families were taking vacations to Earth. Human workers were requesting transfers back to human space. The Clixar counselor mentioned it in a meeting. The humans seem restless. Perhaps they are upset about their probationary status. Let them sulk, the Vextar counselor chimed. They will adjust. Should we be concerned? A Malurian representative asked. About humans? The Prythony counselor wheezed with laughter. They are too dependent on us. Where would they go? They need the council more than we need them. This was what the council truly believed. They thought humanity was bound to them by necessity. They thought humans would complain for a while and then accept their new status. They thought the humans would never actually leave. They were wrong. By day 25, half the human population in council space was gone. The ones who remained were only those needed to maintain critical systems until the final day. Dr. Nari ran her last experiment. She saved the data to her encrypted drive and deleted it from the council servers. She looked around her laboratory one final time. 20 years of her life had happened in this room. She felt nothing but relief to be leaving it. Engineer Taman completed his final system check. Everything was running perfectly. It would continue running perfectly for about 60 days. After that, without human maintenance, problems would start appearing. In 6 months, major systems would fail. He had left instructions, but he knew the other species would not follow them carefully enough. Captain Doyen brought his fleet to the edge of human space. They sat just inside Council territory, ready to jump to safety at a moment's notice. His crew was eager to leave. They were tired of protecting people who despised them. Counselor Yuna transferred the last of the human assets. The Council's economy was about to lose 35% of its foundation. They would not notice for a few weeks. When they did, it would already be over. Ambassador Hune sat in his office and prepared his final message. He had written it carefully, choosing each word. It said everything that needed to be said without wasting time on anger. On day 29, the last humans began moving toward their ships. They walked through council stations for the final time. Some felt sad. Most felt free. On day 30, at exactly 0 hours across all time zones, every human in council space boarded a ship bound for home. Ambassador Hyun stood in the empty council chamber one last time. He looked at the 5 human seats. He remembered every insult, every dismissal, every moment of casual contempt. He pressed the button to send his final message. It would broadcast in 12 hours, giving all humans time to reach safety. Then he walked out of the chamber, got on his ship, and left. Behind him, the lights in the human delegation office went dark. The council slept, unaware that when they woke up, everything would be different. The council president arrived at the chamber at his usual time, 800 hours exactly. He slid his massive aquatic form into the water tank that served as his seat and prepared for the quarterly session. Other council members were arriving, floating, crawling, and walking to their positions. The Vextar counselor chimed a greeting. The Clixar representative buzzed about the weather. The Prathani floated serenely in their gas bubbles. Everything seemed normal. At 8:30, the president noticed the 5 empty seats at the back of the chamber. "Where are the humans?" he gurgled. A Malurian aide checked its tablet. "I do not see them in the building, sir." "Did they notify us of an absence?" the president asked. "No, sir. There is no message." The president felt a small ripple of annoyance. Typical human disorganization. Begin the session without them. They can catch up when they arrive. The session started. They discussed trade regulations for 30 minutes before a Clixar aide rushed into the chamber, its 4 arms waving frantically. "Counselors, we have a problem." "What is it?" the president demanded. "The humans. They are gone." "Gone where?" "Just gone. All of them. The human delegation office is empty. Their quarters are cleared out. Ambassador Hyun's ship left the station last night. A confused murmur ran through the chamber. The Vextar counselor chimed loudly. They must be attending some human cultural event. They will return. I do not think so, sir, the aide said nervously. We are receiving reports from across council space. Every human has left. The colonies, the stations, the research facilities. All empty. The chamber erupted in noise. 42 species all talking at once, demanding explanations, calling for information. Silence, the president commanded. Show me these reports. For the next hour, the data came flooding in. Station Carrick 7, all 50 human engineers gone. Research Lab Theta, Dr. Nari and her entire team missing. Trading Post Valorum, every human merchant departed. Military Sector. Gamma, Captain Doyen's fleet has withdrawn to human space, 12,000 humans, all gone in a single night. This is impossible, the Clixar counselor buzzed. How did we not notice? They must have planned this, the Pretheni representative wheezed. But why? The president's aide approached nervously. Sir, there is a message. It is addressed to the council from Ambassador Hyun. It was sent on a delay and just arrived. Play it, the president ordered. The main screen lit up with Hyun's face. He looked calm, almost peaceful. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. To the Galactic Council, humanity hereby withdraws from all treaties, agreements, and associations, effective immediately. We came in peace, offered our knowledge freely, and sought only to be treated as equals. Instead, we were tolerated as useful servants. We leave you now to the galaxy you deserve. Do not contact us. Do not enter Terran space. We will not be returning. May you find the wisdom you lack. The message ended. The chamber fell completely silent. The Vextar counselor was the first to speak. This is an overreaction. They are upset about the probationary status. We can reverse that decision. Send them a message. We should offer them full voting rights, a Malurian representative suggested. That will bring them back. The president sent the message immediately. To humanity, we have reconsidered our decision. We offer full council membership with complete voting rights. Please return to negotiations. The response came back in 5 minutes. It was not from Ambassador Hyun. It was an automated message from the Human Border Defenses. Your presence is not welcome in Terran space. Leave immediately or you will be fired upon. This is your only warning. The Clixar counselor's mandibles clicked in shock. They are threatening us? They would not dare. Send a diplomatic ship, the Vextar counselor commanded. We will talk to them face to face. A council diplomatic vessel approached human space the next day. It broadcast friendship codes and requests for dialogue. The humans did not respond. When the ship crossed into human territory, warning alarms blared. A human voice came over the comm. You have 10 seconds to turn around. The diplomatic ship's captain, a proud Vextar named Kresh, refused to retreat. We have diplomatic immunity. We demand. At 8 seconds, human defense platforms opened fire. The ship's shields held for 3 seconds before collapsing. The ship was destroyed. There were no survivors. The council received the sensor data in horror. The humans had killed a diplomatic vessel without hesitation. No warning shots, no second chances, just immediate, overwhelming force. They have gone mad, the Prethani counselor wheezed. This is an act of war. We should respond with force, the Clixar representative buzzed angrily. Send the fleet, make them see reason. But Captain Doyen's report on human military capabilities was in the council archives. Someone finally read it. The humans had the most advanced weapons in council space. Their ships were faster, their shields were stronger, their tactics were better. They had been protecting the council, not because they needed the council's help, but because they chose to. A military analyst delivered the bad news. If we attack human space, we will lose. Badly. The first week became the second week. The council tried everything. They sent messages of apology. They offered trade deals. They promised reforms. Every message went unanswered or was rejected by automated systems. Meanwhile, the effects of the human departure began to show. The Medical Research Division discovered that all of Dr. Nari's current projects were encrypted. Her notes were written in a code they could not break. Her research assistants had been trained in the procedures, but they did not understand the underlying science. Experiments began to fail. Treatments stopped working. No one could figure out why. The defense grid started showing errors. Small ones at first. A sensor would go offline. A shield generator would flicker. Engineer Taman's maintenance team tried to fix the problems, but they had only followed his instructions. They did not understand the systems the way he did. The problems got worse. Station Carrick 7 sent a distress call. Life support was failing. The human engineers who had maintained it were gone. The replacement crew was trying to follow Taman's manuals, but they were missing something crucial. 3,000 people had to evacuate before the station's atmosphere became toxic. The economy began to contract. Human trading routes had connected species who could not or would not trade with each other directly. Humans had been the middle ground, the trusted third party. Without them, old grudges resurfaced. Trade deals fell apart. Prices increased. Shortages appeared. Counselor Yuna's replacement, a Clixar economist named Varix, stared at the banking reports in confusion. Where did all the human assets go? There were trillions of credits in council banks. Gone, an aide told him. Transferred out over the past month. We thought it was normal market activity. The council's economy had just lost 35% of its foundation in a single day. By the third week, panic was spreading. The Vextar Empire demanded action. The Clixar Consortium threatened to withdraw from the council if the human situation was not resolved. The Prathani simply wheezed in distress, watching their medical supply chains collapse. A young Malurian historian named Kelvin began researching what humanity had actually contributed to the council. The more he dug, the more horrified he became. Humans had been involved in everything. They had fixed problems no one else could solve. They had connected people who hated each other. They had kept the entire system running, and the council had treated them like children. Kelvin compiled his findings into a report he called The Ledger of Loss. It was 800 pages long. It detailed every human contribution, every breakthrough, every moment where humans had saved the council from itself. He presented it to the council president, who read it in silence. When he finished, the president's tentacles drooped in his tank. "We have made a terrible mistake," he gurgled quietly. "Yes, sir," Kelvin agreed. "Can we fix it?" Kelvin looked at the empty human seats. "I do not know." The council chamber felt much larger now. The conversations felt emptier. The problems felt unsolvable. 47 species had once gathered here. Now only 42 remained. 5 seats sat empty, a constant reminder of what had been lost. The humans were gone, and they were not coming back. 3 months after the exodus, the council's main computer system crashed. It happened during a routine update, the kind that engineer Taman had performed hundreds of times. The replacement team followed his manual exactly, but something went wrong. The quantum processors locked up. The entire database went offline. Every piece of council data disappeared in an instant. Trade records, legal documents, scientific research, cultural archives, medical records, everything. The Vextar technical team worked for 6 days straight trying to restore it. They could not even understand what the problem was. The system was built on human-designed architecture, layers upon layers of code that no other species fully comprehended. Taman had maintained it alone for 15 years, making it more complex and more efficient with each update. On the 7th day, they admitted defeat. "The data is gone," the lead technician chimed sadly. "We cannot recover it." "What about backups?" the council president demanded. The backups were stored on the same system, also gone. The council had just lost 12,000 years of accumulated knowledge. In Medical Research Station Theta, Dr. Nari's replacement, Vekan, stared at a rack of test tubes in confusion. The experiment was supposed to synthesize a compound that treated vortex syndrome. He had followed every step in Nari's manual. The equipment was working properly, but the compound was not forming. He ran the procedure again. Same result. Nothing. A Prythani researcher floated over. What is wrong? I do not understand, Veckan buzzed in frustration. The manual says to add the catalyst at 40 degrees. I did that. It should work. Perhaps you are doing something wrong, the Prythani wheezed. Veckan's mandibles clicked angrily. I am following the exact procedure. What neither of them understood was that Nari had left out one crucial detail in her manuals. She had never written it down because it seemed obvious to her. The temperature needed to be exactly 40.3 degrees, not just 40. That tiny detail made the difference between success and failure. Across council space, similar problems appeared in every lab that had once employed human scientists. The manuals were detailed, but they were not complete. Humans had an intuitive understanding of their own research that they could not fully communicate. Without them, the experiments failed. The treatment stopped working. The cures became useless. Crimson fever returned in the 4th month. It started in the outer colonies and spread rapidly. The Clixar Consortium tried to produce the cure that Dr. Nari had developed. They had her published paper. They had the formula. But the medicine they created did not work. People died by the thousands, then by the tens of thousands. The Clixar finally admitted the truth. We do not have the complete formula. Dr. Nari must have kept part of it secret. Why would she do that? A counselor demanded. Because we stole her research and sold it for profit, another counselor said quietly. She probably knew we would do it again. The death toll climbed past 1 million. In Sector Gamma, pirate attacks increased by 800%. Captain Doyen's fleet had kept the peace for 20 years, responding to every threat within hours. The Council's own military tried to fill the gap, but they were not prepared. They did not have the tactical training. They did not have the response times. They did not have the coordination. A Malurian admiral named Thress reviewed the combat reports with growing dread. We are losing every engagement. The pirates are not even trying to hide anymore. They know we cannot stop them. What about the defense grid? Someone suggested. It is barely functional, Thress gurgled. Half the sensors are offline. The automated systems are glitching. We get false alarms every hour. Trade routes became dangerous. Merchant ships started hiring private security. Prices increased even more. Some routes were abandoned completely. The 6th month brought the Helix sector disaster. The Council had ignored Engineer Taman's warnings and built 7 colonies near the unstable neutron star cluster. The construction had gone well initially, giving the Council confidence that the human engineer had been wrong. Then the stars began to destabilize, exactly as Taman had predicted. Radiation poured out of the cluster in massive waves. The colonies had 60 hours to evacuate. The problem was that the evacuation routes had always been maintained by human ships. Those routes were no longer operational. The Council's own vessels tried to reach the colonies, but half of them broke down. They had not been properly maintained since the humans left. 4 of the 7 colonies were successfully evacuated. 3 were not. 4 million people died in the radiation storms. Their last transmissions were calls for help that no one could answer. The Council held an emergency session. The chamber was half empty now. Several species had withdrawn their membership, citing the Council's inability to protect them. Others had simply stopped attending, seeing no point in participating in a failing government. We need the humans back, the Vextar counselor chimed. For once, there was no arrogance in its voice. Only desperation. They will not come, the president said. We have tried everything. Have we tried admitting we were wrong? A young Prythani representative asked. Her name was Sivan, and she had once served under Captain Doyen. Have we actually, truly apologized? We sent them apologies, the Clixar counselor buzzed. You sent them words, Sivan wheezed. Words they have heard before. Words that meant nothing because you never changed your behavior. Why would they believe you now? The chamber fell silent. Kelvin, the Malurian historian, brought his updated report. The ledger of loss had grown to 1,200 pages. He had documented everything. 847 major medical advances, the entire defense architecture, 62% of functional technology, 93% of interspecies dispute mediations, the economic framework that enabled peaceful trade. They were the foundation, Kelvin said, and we treated them like decorations. In the ninth month, the Vextar Empire collapsed into civil war. Their food production had relied on human agricultural techniques. Without humans to maintain the systems, crop yields dropped by 70%. Famine spread. Different Vextar factions began fighting over resources. The Clixar Consortium tried to take advantage, expanding into former Vextar territory. But they discovered that their own infrastructure was failing. The manufacturing plants that produced their technology had been designed with human help. Without that expertise, production quality dropped, equipment failed. Their economy began to crumble. The Prithani tried to recreate human medical techniques from memory and partial records. They failed catastrophically. 3 experimental treatments killed more people than they saved. The Prithani Medical Authority banned all human-derived treatments, which made the health crisis even worse. By the end of the first year, the council was a shadow of what it had been. Trade was down 60%. Medical care was failing. Defense was nearly non-existent. The economy was in free fall. Species that had cooperated for thousands of years were now fighting over resources. The council president sat alone in his tank, staring at the 5 empty seats. He had been so certain that humans needed the council. He had believed that they would come crawling back within weeks, begging to be readmitted. Instead, the council needed them. Desperately. And they were gone. A message arrived from the Clixar homeworld. They were withdrawing from the council. "We are treated with the same contempt that the humans experienced," the message read. "We refuse to stay where we are not valued." The president realized with horror what was happening. The council had not just lost humanity. They had shown every younger species that the elder races would never accept them as equals. Now others were leaving too. "We have destroyed ourselves," the president gurgled to his empty chamber. "And we blame the humans for being immature." Outside the station, a human merchant ship passed by on its way to independent space. It did not stop. It did not even slow down. The council's grandest station, once the center of galactic civilization, was now just another landmark to pass by. Inside the ship, the human captain looked at the station and felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just a distant memory of a place he used to work a long time ago. He adjusted course and continued toward home, leaving the council behind. 50 years had passed since the Exodus. The young Malurian historian Kelvin was no longer young. He was now the council's senior archivist, keeper of what little knowledge had been recovered after the great database crash. His life's work had been documenting what the council had lost. He sat in the chamber that once held 47 species. Now only 19 remained. The Vextar Empire had shattered completely, breaking into 6 warring factions. The Clixar Consortium had withdrawn 30 years ago. The Prithani had isolated themselves, refusing to participate in what they called a failed experiment. Dozens of other species had simply left, seeking stability elsewhere. The council that remained was humble in a way it had never been before. The current president was a Malurian named Varesh, born after the Exodus. She had never met a human. She had only read about them in Kelvin's histories. "Tell me again what they were like," Varesh asked Kelvin. The old historian bubbled softly in his tank. "They were patient, hardworking. They solved problems that seemed impossible. And we treated them like servants." "My generation does not understand how yours could have been so blind," Varesh said. "We were not blind," Kelvin replied sadly. "We saw exactly who they were. We simply believed that being older meant being better. We thought age equaled wisdom. We were wrong." A young Prithani counselor named Sivan floated nearby. She was the daughter of the Sivan who had once served under Captain Doyen. Her mother had told her stories about the human captain, about his tactical brilliance and his fair treatment of all species. "My mother said the humans were the only ones who treated her as an equal," young Sivan wheezed. "She said they judged you on your abilities, not your age or your species." "Yes," Kelvin confirmed. "That was their way." Varesh looked at the 5 empty seats. They had never been filled. They stood as a memorial now, a permanent reminder of the council's greatest failure. Once a year, On the anniversary of the Exodus, the Council held a moment of silence. They called it the Day of Regret. "I want to try again," Varesh said suddenly. "I want to send them a real apology." "We have tried," Kelvin reminded her, "many times." Those were the old Council's apologies, made by the same people who had insulted them. They were hollow words. Varesh's tentacles moved with determination. "This is different. We are different. We grew up learning from their absence. We understand what was lost." "They will not listen," Kelvin said. But there was hope in his voice. "Perhaps," Varesh agreed, "but we must try." The Council spent 3 months drafting the message. Every word was debated. Every sentence was questioned. They wanted it to be perfect, to be genuine, to show that they truly understood what they had done. The final message was simple. To humanity. 50 years ago, our predecessors drove you away through arrogance and disrespect. We who have lived in the galaxy you left behind have learned the cost of that arrogance. We do not ask you to return. We do not ask you to forgive. We simply ask that you hear our apology. We were wrong. We are sorry. We have learned. If you are willing, we would like to speak with you again, not as superiors to subordinates, but as equals seeking to rebuild what was broken. We understand if you refuse. We will respect your decision. With genuine regret, the Galactic Council. They sent the message to Earth and waited. 3 months passed with no response. The Council began to lose hope. Then, on the 92nd day, a reply arrived. It was not from Ambassador Hyun. He had died peacefully 20 years earlier, surrounded by his family on Earth. The message came from Ambassador Sora, a human woman in her 40s. She was Hyun's granddaughter. To the Galactic Council, we have received your apology. We acknowledge it. My grandfather spoke of you often in his final years. He did not hate you. He was simply tired of not being heard. He wanted humanity to be free to grow without constantly defending our worth. We have built a good life in these 50 years. We have thrived. We have expanded. We have created art and science and culture without needing anyone's approval. We are happy, but we are not cruel. We remember that some of you tried to be fair. We remember the individuals who treated us with respect, even when the Council as a whole did not. We will share the medical data you need. Dr. Nari left instructions that if you ever truly asked, rather than demanded, we should help. We will teach you what you have forgotten. We will trade with you, fairly and equally. We will talk with you, and perhaps, in time, we will trust you. But we will not rejoin your council. We will not return to being members of a system that sees membership as a hierarchy. If you want to work with us, it will be as independent allies, not as subordinates. These are not demands. These are simply our terms. Accept them or continue alone. We leave the choice to you, Ambassador Sora, representing humanity. Varesh read the message to the full council. When she finished, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, Kelvin broke the silence. They are giving us more than we deserve. Yes, Varesh agreed. The question is, are we wise enough to accept it? The vote was unanimous. The council accepted humanity's terms. Over the next year, carefully and slowly, communication resumed. Human doctors traveled to plague-stricken worlds and taught the locals how to produce the medicines properly. The crucial detail about the 40.3 degrees that Dr. Nari had left out was finally revealed. Treatments began working again. Human engineers helped restore the defense grid, training a new generation of technicians who actually understood the systems they maintained. Pirate attacks decreased. Trade routes became safe again. Human merchants returned to council space, but they came as independent traders, not as council citizens. They negotiated fair deals, charged fair prices, and treated everyone equally. The economy began to stabilize. Captain Doyen did not return. He had retired to a quiet colony world. But his daughter, Captain Jiwon, led a small human fleet that provided security consulting. She taught council military officers the tactics her father had developed. Slowly, the council's defense capabilities improved. Humanity shared its knowledge, but it did not share everything. Some secrets remained human alone. This was not cruelty, it was caution. The humans had learned that giving everything freely led to exploitation. Now they gave carefully, watching to see if the council truly had changed. And the council was changing. The new generation, led by Varesh, rewrote the council's charter. There would be no more membership tiers, no more probationary status. Every species that joined would have equal voting rights from day one. Age would not equal authority. Several species who had withdrawn began to return, cautiously optimistic about the reforms. The 5 human seats remained empty. Varesh had offered to fill them if humanity ever changed its mind. Ambassador Sora had politely declined. "Those seats are a better memorial than any statue," she had said. "Let them stay empty. Let future generations see them and remember what happens when wisdom is confused with age and respect is confused with submission." On the 75th anniversary of the Exodus, Varesh and a small delegation traveled to Earth. It was the first time council representatives had been allowed on the human homeworld since the departure. They were greeted by Ambassador Sora, now an elderly woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She looked like her grandfather. "Welcome to Earth," she said simply. "Would you like some tea?" They sat together in a garden in Seoul, drinking tea and talking. Not about trade or treaties or politics, just talking. About life, about mistakes, about hope. "Do you think we can truly be allies?" Varesh asked. Sora smiled. "My grandfather used to say that trust is built in small moments, not grand declarations. We are having tea together. That is a start." "A start," Varesh agreed. In the garden, human children played with young Malurians, splashing in a fountain together. A Prithani floated nearby, watching over them all. Different species, treating each other as equals, learning together. It was not the council that humanity had left. It was something new, something better. And somewhere, perhaps, Ambassador Hyun was smiling. The galaxy had learned its lesson, paid for in 50 years of struggle and loss. Humanity had left without a word because their words had not been valued. Now, finally, when humans spoke, the galaxy listened. The 5 empty seats remained in the council chamber, and they would remain empty forever. But they were no longer a wound. They were a teacher, reminding every generation that respect must be earned through actions, not demanded through age. The council had known regret. Now they were learning wisdom, and that made all the difference.